Greetings, greetings, greetings. Happy Monday, happy Moon Day to everyone. I am going to pull a card for the collective. Of course, the collective meanings can be used for all signs. And the question that I'm inspired to ask is, where should I be placing my focus? Where will I benefit from placing my time, my energy, and my money? What is it that maybe I have been missing or overlooking? What message does the spirit realm have for me? That was the question I posed today when I did my personal reading for my Monday motivational, and it led to some profound realizations. And sometimes profound realizations are uncomfortable because you are expanding and venturing into new territory. And I feel that a lot of us here are expanding and going into new territory, so we're going to get started. What message is there that may have been blocked, or maybe it was just we weren't quite ready for it? What message do you have for us regarding motivation? I felt you, but I didn't pull it. Okay. All right. Healing the divine masculine. Healing the divine masculine. Here's a picture. I'm going to read this to you. This is interesting. Very similar to what I pulled for myself. It says the divine masculine within provides protection, discernment, healing, and a sense of deep safety and holding, even through the most uncomfortable circumstances of life. Your inner masculine is going through healing right now, growing stronger in the ability to offer you inner peace and protection and stability so that your inner feminine can blossom with creative expression. So we're being redirected to heal the masculine attributes within us. Every human being has both feminine and masculine energy within them. And a lot of us have not felt, we have not felt like we fit into the world, and we're unsure of what our place is in the world. Masculine energy is the energy of structure. And so there are some decisions that maybe we avoided making because we were unsure. The structure will allow you to make decisions in a way that is taking you towards the life that you have been working diligently to create. For people who dealt with trauma and abuse as a child and are healing that trauma, right now, most of everything that may be coming up for you, and these are internal and external thoughts, patterns, and situations, is calling for you to nurture the masculine within you, because toxic masculine energy is what society groomed us into operating in unknowingly. Toxic masculinity is characterized by being excessively controlling, but maybe not admitting that you are trying to control a situation that just may not be in your control. It is the divine masculine that steps in and says, look, you're not in control of this. Allow me to assist you in creating structure and boundaries around yourself, because that is one thing you can always control. And I know the world is not black and white. And for many of us who are trauma survivors, we tend to perceive things in black and white. There are many shades of gray in between. Life is a life of many different experiences that show up to give us contrast, which is the difficulties. And in that space, we can be reflective as to what is it going to take for me to get through whatever it is that I'm experiencing right now. For the collective, the divine masculine is calling for the predominantly masculine beings that are awakening to heal the emotional and mental imbalances. In the community of Black and brown people, especially, mental health wasn't really a topic. It wasn't something that we learned about. It wasn't something we discussed. So many of us have existed without boundaries. And when you are a trauma survivor, you have a tendency to be triggered, and that trigger may shift you into a pattern of using outdated coping mechanisms to push people away, and that happens when you don't have boundaries. So using anger to push people away was the old way. Boundaries is the new way. Also, with the masculine, we know that the patriarchy was so traumatic. I mean, the last 6,000 years alone of what we have experienced on the planet, that women have been treated as if they are the weaker vessel for so long. And now we're in a different space. The veil is down and we can perceive the unperceivable and see the unseen. This is what I've been talking about for a few years now, the mass exorcisms of Betelgeuse, the Death Star. It's not a negative thing. It's necessary for healing to take place. We must be purged. And how can you heal a wound that you have not yet become aware of within yourself? So the masculine creates structure, and that helps us to accomplish things that our heart desires, but we don't know exactly how to do it. Unfortunately, trauma enmeshment, which is being trauma bonded with someone, those relationships are dissipating, because it not only hurts the two people in the trauma bonded relationship, which is characterized by relating to each other's trauma. The way that you bond and connect could have very well been unprocessed trauma, and you felt seen in the beginning and it was relatable. But as you do the work and heal yourself, you no longer become a magnet for trauma, and you no longer feel the drive and desire to rescue and fix people. And so this is, I've been talking about this a lot, but this is what's happening in society, where we're seeing the predominantly masculine collective is definitely having some trouble regulating emotions and trouble communicating, identifying their feelings, finding the words that fit those feelings, being vulnerable, not being afraid of intimacy, knowing healthy ways of resolving conflict. These are all divine masculine traits. In order for us to get there, we must first work on ourselves. Hypervigilance, which is another effect of trauma, where you're scanning your environment at all times for any sense of threat. And oftentimes we perceive things to be a threat that are not a threat. But if the filter that we're using to perceive the situation is based in our wounds that have been unprocessed, or we're not self-aware about, then that leads to reenactment of trauma. And I'll be talking more and more about this leading up throughout the next weeks. But this is the sign right here that it is time for you to practice enforcing boundaries, which also means people may not like it and they may be upset with you, and some people may want to cut you off and not be a part of your life, or relationships will shift and change as you use boundaries. We grew up in a society where saying no was unacceptable, especially for girls, little girls. Like, you couldn't say no, right? That's unacceptable. You get in trouble if you say no at home. You got in trouble if you said no at school. You got in trouble if you said no at church. You got in trouble if, anytime you did not feel aligned with whatever was happening and you tried to create a boundary as a child. And we tried to create boundaries as children, and we didn't have the emotional intelligence, the level of emotional intelligence, which is the EQ, the emotional quotient. We didn't have enough data to create boundaries as kids, so we created a false self, and that false self is the mask that we wear, the personalities we shift in and out of depending on our atmosphere, our environment, who we're around. And this is why a lot of times, relationships have gotten more complex, because the compartmentalized parts of us are now coming out and coming to the surface. All right. So that is the first one. And I'm going to also pull the next card for the subconscious pattern that has been holding us back. What message does Spirit have for those who know without a shadow of a doubt they are not living life with gratitude and joy and bliss as much as they would like to? What can be useful pertaining to this? Soul retrieval. Soul retrieval. That's powerful. So you might ask, soul retrieval, like, what is that? How is that? Why is that? And what does that mean? I'm going to read this card to you, and then I will give you some information about 2023 being the year 7 and the energy that it holds. And there are not only 7 chakras within the spiritual anatomy, but there are also 7 parts to our souls. And in each incarnation, the goal is to retrieve the lost parts of your soul. So we're going to read about this. Isis, healing goddess, now offers you spiritual restoration and deep soul healing through the art of soul retrieval, reclaiming pieces of you lost through trauma, old and new. Soon you will enjoy greater wellness, energy, and power. So be willing to go through the healing process, knowing that any emotional clearing taking place is leading you to wholeness. In regards to soul retrieval and us being led to wholeness, the goal is to have enough self-realization to identify the areas where you don't feel whole, to identify the areas where you may lack confidence, to identify the areas where you are fearful. And maybe that fear shows up as sadness or anger or depression or anxiety. It can show up many different ways. Soul retrieval processes, also this can be called a soul recapitulation. And in the course, 3D Matrix Detox course, and also in the chakra camps for the lower 3 chakras, which are the chakras that are definitely being bombarded with plenty of reasons to be overactive or underactive and imbalanced. So with trauma, we compartmentalize a part of ourselves that we no longer identify with, because that part of yourself maybe did not receive praise. Maybe it got us in trouble at some point. Maybe we did not feel loved unless we were being and doing exactly what someone else wanted us to be and do. And this is oftentimes the case as children. And as children, we are naturally narcissistic. We are naturally self-preserving. That's the way that you survive on this planet when you first come into this world, which means a baby is not going to avoid crying when the baby is hungry, because it might hurt your feelings or disturb you or upset you. So when I say narcissistic as babies, that's what I mean. There is a healthy self-preservation and there is an unhealthy self-preservation. A lot of us our souls are calling to us, and that feeling of being lost is an invitation to access a deeper part of you that you lost, right? And you can regain these parts of your soul. 5 years ago, I started seeking ways to do this, studying shamanic practices. I became a certified herbalist. I studied Reiki. I studied crystals. And I found the common denominator within many ancient spiritual healing practices. And that was what led to the soul retrieval. So in the 3D Matrix Detox course, there we have a soul retrieval in there where you can finally make a connection with the lost parts of yourself that we feel. And the reason that's so important for us to connect with the lost parts of ourselves is due to the body snatching that's happening on the planet. Some will call this possessions. Some will call it obsessions. Others would call it codependency, addictions. It's a love addiction. I need somebody to make me feel good about myself. So I have to be in relationships because I don't know how to feel good about myself on my own. I don't know how to soothe my own soul. And many of us created relationships in trauma, which means many relationships were really trauma bonds. And as we are reflecting and retrieving and being awakened and being rebirthed, it's like over and over again, you're shedding skin and becoming a better version of you. So in the course, the soul retrieval process, it usually takes about 13 days to work through it. I give you the journal prompts where you will be able to increase the connection to hear your I Divine Self speak, which is your future self that exists outside of this time-space construct that has already mastered many of the lessons you may be experiencing now. That soul retrieval is so powerful, and I go back to it when I feel it's time for me to recreate myself. The more I discover things about myself that attract negativity into my life, then that's a time for me to fill that space in with something else once I banish it. And from studying many different practitioners and the ways of the shamanic journeys, that's what's included in that course. You're going to go through a journey of rediscovering the parts of you that were lost or completely forgotten about. The false self ritual that's in there allows you to respectfully acknowledge the shadow aspects of you, the part of you that didn't know how to give love to him or herself, and We created habits, addictions, and relationships to fill that void. Well, with everything that's happening now, any moment that you spend ruminating inside of your mind and you're not fully feeling and inhabiting your own body, your temple, it opens you up for other energies to take space within your body. This can show up in the form of headaches, irritability, fatigue, pain, intrusive thoughts that may or may not be your thoughts. And with the mixture of stress that we are experiencing as a collective, it's allowing us to finally see what was once hidden, which is our true state of being. And no matter how great of a person we might think we are, all of us have a dark side. All of us have a shadow repressed part of us created in childhood conditioning that is pleading for us to pay attention to it. I don't want to use this time to go into some other specifics that I cannot mention here. But those specifics for people who enjoy studying metaphysics, quantum entanglement, for people that enjoy studying biology, psychology, parapsychology, the ecosystem of life force parasites that feed on the energy of human beings, and some of the events that have been occurring for the past few months and why they are occurring. It's all connected, and that you will find in its totality on Patreon, and it's on every tier for a donation of any amount that you choose. You can cancel it anytime, of course. I highly recommend that you go and start collecting information, courses, making bookmarks, finding books that resonate with where you are to fill in the space of what we have been purging. So let me say this one more time. Because the telepathy on the planet has increased, we can now not only hear our thoughts, but the thoughts of others. Especially for those of us who are highly empathic, or highly sensitive persons. On top of that, we also have the portals that have been opening other dimensions and giving them direct access to this reality, this realm. All of these things are creating what seems to be a mental health crisis out of the blue, but it has always been there. And the lockdowns in 2020 was a galactic time out for humanity. We are the babies of our solar system. So we are just now really beginning this journey. For any soul that comes to planet Earth, you're coming here with a soul contract. You choose your parents, you choose your sibling, you choose your experiences. Without knowing that you have the power to change your book of life, to change your soul contracts, you live in a state, we can all live in a state of victimhood, and the wounds of betrayal, the experience of shame. It's like I know so much, but I just keep fucking it up. I can't figure out why I'm doing the very thing that I know it's not healthy for me to do. And so all of this is bringing us to this space where I personally believe that every human on this planet is here to become a better version of themselves. And sometimes someone's better version is becoming a better villain. Light cannot exist without dark. Everything has a place. Just as in nature, everything has a place. We cannot exist without a sun that gives light for the day and a moon that gives light for the night. There is no separation between light and dark. They coexist, and it's meant to be used for transformation. So I'm going to be sure to keep an eye out for those of you that sign up for the course. Giving gifts is one of my love languages. So of course there are going to be things in there that you may not have expected. And at times I go back and I add something if I discover something new. The galactic signature, been really slept on. That is one of the most powerful ways to be empowered by who you are, just as you are, without changing anything. My goal with what I am sharing from the many experiences that I have had in this lifetime and past lives is to reduce suffering, reduce the idea of suffering, because suffering is something that's created by amplified intrusive thoughts in combination with intense self-hatred emotions towards self, and that creates a toxic soup. And that toxic soup becomes the frequency you are in the most, which means you will attract more of what you are marinating in the most. Okay? So the soul retrieval is in the course. The galactic signature is in the course. How to discover the different personality traits and false self is in the course. How did we get here? That's in the course, and I went through all of the power structures that created what we now are experiencing as collective chaos. So, as a love worker, if your goal is to reduce suffering, to invite love, non-judgment, to be able to develop relationships that are founded in intimacy and unconditional love rather than ego-based fear, you're gonna definitely love what you are gonna get. It brings so much peace to me to be able to find resolutions that work, and these strategies will work if you work them. So be sure to check that out. And for those of you who want the real news, that archive is on Patreon. And I highly, highly recommend that you at least give yourself a week to look over that, because we do have some remedies on there that I have personally been using myself and for the family. And as I said, the censorship is growing, and with growing censorship, as we get deeper into the underworld, we have 7 more years of this underworld energy, actually 6 now years of underworld energy. The prophecy of harmonic frequencies that the Mayans used to create a map of what humanity was going to experience, which I will call the mind virus and the heart chakra virus. That's what's happening right now. And there are ways that you can regulate yourself, to restructure your life, write new verses to the song your soul came to sing. And the only thing that's missing is your investment, your time, and your commitment to reprogramming your subconscious mind. For those of you who are not new, you already know what we like to do over here. Man, your third eye has just been kissed. Namaste. Royalty in disguise.